All right, hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy Ask Us Anything live stream, the Thursday morning reInvent recap. We
Is it
are
Thursday
your
already?
tired but excited hosts, Rahul and Stephen. How are you feeling?
Like I said, I think it's extraordinarily tiring, but at the same time exhilarating. There's something about the energy over here with all the folks that just keeps you going, no matter how tired you are. I think without a doubt, if you look at the Fitbit average steps for everyone at reInvent, you'd be creating new records.
I noticed a few my feet hurt social media posts. That was really,
Yeah, so I
funny.
mean, if you remember our original tip, wear comfortable shoes. I think if you didn't follow it, you'd be in real pain at this point. But it's been absolutely awesome. I think even yesterday, pretty late in the evening when we were at the show floor and then back here, just seeing everyone, the excitement right up to 10 p.m. when we were hosting our amazing party over here. I mean, the excitement that people had was just absolutely stunning, and that keeps everyone going. It's like this, collective energy that gets generated out of nothing.
I
Uh,
posted on LinkedIn some photos from our party yesterday, and then that was about 5 this morning, and then got a few likes from other people who were there at around 5:02. So I wasn't the only one on LinkedIn earlier
yeah,
this
and,
morning.
and people kind of went back maybe around 10:30, 11 last night. So yeah, everyone's been kind of operating on anywhere between 3 and 5 hours of sleep every night, but the energy is just awesome.
Yeah, both the in-person interactions after a couple of years of less of those, and also just all the new features to go and think about. And
Yeah.
well, let's go over. We're going to talk about the keynote yesterday, Swami's keynote, and also your
Yep.
talk. How did you feel about your talk?
Oh, it was really exciting. The talk went well, and hopefully, folks will connect, and we'll have more discussions. I think, in general, uh, my only complaint about reInvent is that I don't believe that costs and efficiency were really addressed as a theme, which I was really hoping for. But I am very, very confident that it's going to be the theme next year. So, in the meantime, happy to share our experiences and help everyone kind of get more efficient. So,
Absolutely, it's fun to be at the forefront of that. So,
exactly. Okay, so let's get started.
all right. Well, actually, this one that's on the screen here, this is a pretty neat announcement. It's a pretty neat piece of artwork, but this is about the company Stability AI. So if you see posts about Stable Diffusion, this is the folks behind that. And they announced yesterday that they are now an AWS partner.
Correct. They're moving all of their models to AWS, and that's where they're going to run all of this. This is really exciting for AWS. This is a huge, big deal for them as well. And yeah, it's been really looking forward to seeing what they do. I think with AWS they get scale beyond anything that they might need, and they are on a amazing growth trajectory. This is going to be the next big thing, isn't it?
And I suppose they're going to make heavy use of these brand new Inferentium 2s.
Correct. Exactly. And I think they have two challenges. One is training at the scale that they need to train these models, and that's constantly happening. I mean, it's not we built a model, let's just go run it. But so training is a big challenge, and of course, once they've got that, to deploy it in a manner where you can, have everyone on the planet be able to access those models and be able to run all the inferences. I mean, this is just spectacular.
Well, these are called generative AI models, and so one of my favorite scenes in Star Trek: First Contact, when the crew of the Enterprise has gone back in time and they teleport and they tell the transporter late 21st century civilian clothing, and the transporter has about a second to make some inference as to what that means, and then dress the crew on the way down. And you think this is the building blocks of that sort of technology, right?
Correct.
Taking context on a general thing and then being able to make inference to a very specific thing very quickly.
Exactly.
So they were maybe using the Inferentium 5 or something.
I've lost track of generations of these instances at this point. So great. So this is great news for AWS.
All right, let's talk about the keynote. We're going to get into several of the announced keynotes, but I think this is one of the themes. Data is the genesis for modern invention.
Correct.
We'll see that.
I think my takeaway from the keynote yesterday, by the way, this was a pretty exciting keynote from the standpoint of having some sort of a theme, a little lacking in the storytelling, but in terms of content, it was actually pretty phenomenal. My takeaway from the keynote yesterday was the fact that I think Swami and AWS in general are doubling down on data governance and trying to prevent shadow IT. I think that's the biggest, as they realize that data is going to drive pretty much everything, it becomes an imperative to make sure that organizations are geared to tackling the bloat that comes from literally copying and pasting different data sets all over the time and then having shadow IT develop. So I think that being the theme, they did a pretty neat job of closing a whole lot of gaps that existed.
That's exactly the phrase I was thinking about. There's a lot. There wasn't one big announcement. Oh my gosh, how in the world? But there's a lot of these bringing things together, integrating things really well.
Yeah.
Preventing shadow IT, and empowering data scientists. So it's really exciting. So let's jump right into it. The first announcement are a set of database capability announcements. So there's a general post, I'll put this in the comments now, on 5 new database and analytics capabilities. So I'll put this in here. This is a pretty good summary of the data capabilities. And then let's jump into the first one, which is going to be document DB elastic clusters. Here comes.
Yep.
Okay, here it is. Document DB elastic clusters. Let's put that. Okay, you can see that. I'll put this in the comments here. Perfect. There we go. There we go. And interestingly, this wasn't called serverless document DB, which a lot of people were wondering about. So I think that's a really good thing. But they've got scaling, be able to take a document DB and be able to very frictionlessly scale it up and scale it down.
Correct. And I think the biggest challenge with a lot of these kind of data stores is, the sharding of data and stuff like that. That basically gets taken care of for you completely. The automatic indexing. I think it gets easier definitely with document DB because it's kind of like a key value store of sorts. I know it's a NoSQL database, but yeah, sometimes you can also look at it as a key value store because it's all kind of JSON in there. So the fact that they take care of all of that for you, figuring out where stuff should kind of go in, I would be very excited to understand the inner workings of this. I'm pretty sure that they borrow a ton from DynamoDB as they've tried to kind of build some of the innards of this. Of course, the interface with DocumentDB happens to be MongoDB's interface. But it would be interesting to learn about how it works inside.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because sometimes when you first think about a database, you think about it as the whole thing, but then being able to separate the interface layer from the storage layer.
Correct.
Right. With Mongo is the language that you used to talk to it, but what's underneath could be anything. But in this case, you're right, it's probably Dynamo.
Yeah, it's probably Dynamo. And I think the key thing that drives Dynamo is the fact that each shard or each, as they index all the data, every, I don't know what to call it, every shard or every little index is going to be 10, it's only 10 gigs. And so therefore it's super easy to load up any snippet or any, query or to execute any query plan within that setup in short order. And you don't run into a lot of those scaling issues that are typically associated with sharding or writing a whole lot of data in a short order of time. So I think we'll do another episode and we'll get all the right folks from AWS to talk about how DocumentDB is going to work. And we'll bring that to you in the next few weeks.
Excellent. We're going to do a rating on this one. I mean, this is a simplifies.
This is definitely a simplifies. I think as we were talking yesterday, my urge to the AWS team, and I think they've kind of heard us and they're going to do this soon, having more examples, having more, what does it look like in the console? What does it mean in terms of pricing? When does it apply to you? Those kind of guidance would be incredibly valuable. This one has some stuff with the CLI, but for someone to play around with this stuff, I think getting a little more details out of it would be really good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Are we going to do the ratings or should we power through today?
Why don't we do a very quick rating? So I think I'd give this a 4.
There we go. 4
and a simplifies. And then, we'll move on to the next. Yes.
Awesome.
Thanks for reminding me that we have to go through this really quickly.
Yeah, we are, we're pressing time. It's all right. Let's do Athena for Apache Spark.
Yep.
is Athena for Apache Spark. This is really amazing. I really think that we're just thinking about Apache projects, thinking from a long time ago, we're not always the easiest things to get started. But
Correct.
Here, you can say basically put a bunch of data into an S3 bucket, set up your Athena project right here, and then click as an engine that you want Spark.
Correct.
I love these GIF screen grabs showing you exactly what to do. I really like this. It's pretty neat. And the blogger here, Donnie Prosco, he gave the history. So when Jeff Barr first announced Athena, changed his perspective, and now being able to start an Athena cluster with all the simplicity of that, but with a Spark engine that you can talk to directly.
Correct.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think the SQL interface is really the key value driver over here. So the fact that they have started connecting Athena with a whole lot of other, data sources is pretty awesome. And yeah, kudos to Donnie and the team that is basically starting to take all this feedback about being more illustrative with their examples and the blog posts. Great job done, guys. Really appreciate it.
All right, nice work. Okay.
Oh, so this one definitely gets a 5. I'm going to be very generous with any blog post that is illustrated in this manner. So definitely a 5 for me, and definitely simplifies as well.
And this simplifies is a big simplifies. Being able to put data in S3 and not having to worry about Spark, how to set all this up, just being able to literally dump your data into a bucket, and now you can use it.
Correct.
In Spark, you can run complex PySpark jobs, whatever you want. That's very exciting.
Perfect.
All right. Next,
going on to the next one.
Yep. Next up is Glue data quality. Let's check this out. Okay, here is Glue data quality. I like this analogy they use of data lakes, which can become data swamps. Now, quick story, I know we're short on time. One of my professors from a long time ago, she gave us this data set and told us to analyze it. And then she, of course, we blindly start doing our regressions, our tests, our summary statistics. She put a bunch of duplicate rows in there, a bunch of bad data, a bunch of things. And then she basically failed all of us for that assignment and said, you didn't really check, did you? You didn't. And it was a great lesson in data quality. Just because you're handed a data set doesn't mean it's all good and it's all accurate, it's all real. But now, if Glue data quality had existed 10 years ago, that would have saved my bacon in that assignment. So what is Glue data quality?
Yeah, so like I said, it's basically, and we should scroll down just a bit more.
Key features.
Here are basically what it is. So you typically need a whole lot of rules that you decide, that you have to create. And more often than not, you do these manually. So I think the biggest game changer for me, at least, is the fact that your Glue data quality automatically has a mechanism to create all of these rules and recommendations. It can look at your data, analyze all the stats around it. Duplicates is a great example, standard deviation, mean deviation, or specific parameters, stuff like that. It will help you with all the data processing. And this is a big deal because when it comes to data science, most scientists spend about 80% of their time cleaning data and making sure that the data is good enough to work with. The rest of the work is actually fairly simple and straightforward. Making sure that you have the right data without the biases, without all, without outliers and stuff like that are distorting your.
When you look at sensor data, sometimes these physical sensors, you get a multiply by 100, and it's an electrical issue. It's not anything to do with the actual data.
Exactly.
But if you don't
clean that up, you're going to be in trouble with your model. So this goes a huge way. Kudos to the team for doing this and making it easier to actually execute the workflows the data scientists have. So yeah, this looks like definitely a simplifies because this is a huge amount of work that's currently done manually. So I'd give it a simplifies, and I would give this a 4.
4 clouds. Here we go. 4 clouds and simplifies. Awesome.
By the way, we will be doing more deep dives on it. Again, this is a crazy hectic pace over here at reInvent. We are all fairly sleep deprived, running on, I don't know what kind of energy at this point, but we have to spend time deep diving into all of this.
Exhilaration of new technology and old friends.
Exactly.
All right. Redshift now supports multi-availability zones. Here comes. Okay, here is Redshift now supports multi-availability zone for RA3 clusters. This is actually pretty exciting. Okay, running your data warehouse in multiple availability zones simultaneously and continue operating in unforeseen failure scenarios. Here we go. Let's take off the simplifies tag because we don't know if this is simplifies yet. I have a feeling we're going to be putting it back, but this is a really, really neat thing. What do you think about this announcement? What are the implications as you see it?
I have to be very honest with you. I had never thought of Redshift not being already incredibly reliable. So the thought that Redshift was not multi-AZ available didn't even cross my mind, because it has never been one of those absolutely core pipelines in at least my use cases. So the thought honestly never occurred, and it was like, I see that this might be required by a whole bunch of people. So I think for a whole bunch of people where BI and analytics and providing those reports is literally the critical element of their business value proposition. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, it just adds a whole lot of redundancy. But I think the biggest value proposition for me from this announcement is this is multi-AZ in this particular case doesn't just mean that you've got standby instances in other availability zones. The fact that you can shard your queries across all of these availability zones is, I think, the key differentiator. The resource utilization that you can get out of deploying a multi-AZ shard, so you need a minimum scale, I think, to make this viable for you. But if you have the minimum scale, using all the instances across all the AZs is really where all the value is.
That makes a lot of sense. They're not just standby.
Yeah, they're not standby in this scenario.
Okay, so multiple operating zones simultaneously and continue to operate.
Correct.
Multi-AZ deployment. And obviously, it's going to have to be in several regions. Makes sense. Okay, that's really neat. Oh, this is going to be really funny. I was looking at Stack Overflow yesterday. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Stack Overflow culture. Here's a question from 2 years and 11 months ago. Can you run Redshift and multi-AZ deployments? And then it was answered 14 hours ago. Yes, now you can. So good that someone was on top of that. And this person who asked the question, Dimitri, I'm glad that your question from nearly 3 years ago has now been answered.
It just goes to show that AWS listens to its customers.
All right. So what are we going to rate this the multi-AZ?
I think it definitely simplifies for a whole lot of people. You just have to figure out at what scale you reach a threshold where this actually makes sense for you.
Yeah.
But I think I would give it 4 points, or I'd give it 4 stars for clouds.
There we go. 4 clouds.
Again, apologize. Sleep deprived over here. But 4 clouds over here for a simple reason that they took care of making sure that these weren't just standby instances, that you can actually leverage them for real-time querying.
Yeah, so you're getting used to the things that
you're getting used
even
to,
before
exactly.
An availability zone fails.
So a subtle cost efficiency thing built in. Great job.
Awesome. All right, next we're going on to Postgres trusted extensions. And then there we go. Okay, this is referencing a tweet by Frank, who was a guest very recently, Frank Pacho, data hero based out of Switzerland. And he said his favorite session was Postgres TLE, Postgres Trusted Language Extensions. And here's the announcement itself by Channy Yoon. And so what is Postgres language extension that's trusted? The idea is you can install and use Postgres, here goes, Postgres SQL extensions in a manner where it's not, say, exfiltrating your data. It's going to run in a secured environment. So
I'll be very honest. I'm not a big fan of extensions because in the long run, it basically hampers your ability to either migrate or, adopt whatever else is new.
Mm-hmm.
The migration paths become that much more complicated, and then it requires I treat this almost like technical debt. Whenever someone goes and does something, one-off in a code base, I kind of double down on the scrutiny around it. Is it absolutely necessary?
Why do we need this?
Yeah, because we're going to be stuck with it forever, and we are going to be responsible for maintaining it.
And then if the developer drops the project, or they lose interest, and all of a sudden we have some reason to upgrade, say for security, but then the extension hasn't been upgraded.
Exactly. So I am generally not a big fan. I treat this almost like customization of certain kinds.
Okay.
They might be relevant for certain scenarios, but my general thumb rule is that don't use anything that is non-standard or not that doesn't come right out of the box as is.
That makes
because when somebody creates an upgrade path, they're going to be looking only at the core functionality. They're not going to be trying to solve for every little extension and every variance in the base setup. So not a big fan of extensions, but if you have to use extensions, I'm really glad that AWS has heard their customer requests and created these trusted language extensions, which you should really think about it as a marketplace of curated extensions that you can start trusting to deploy in whatever Postgres deployment you have running on AWS.
We're looking at the article quickly. So it gives you how to use it, gets good screenshots, looks like it's showing you what it would be like.
Yep.
And both
CLI and console. Yep. So that's pretty neat. That is really, really good.
And it also we've got actual SQL code as a demo, and plus we've got a link to a GitHub repository because this is an open project. This is the kind of thing that's perfect for open source, right? You really want to be able to know how this works.
Correct.
So this looks really good.
This is a very, very detailed blog post. Great job, Channy. This is exactly what will make it easy for customers to look at this stuff, evaluate it, and play around with it.
So I would say simplifies, but with the caveat that simplifies in the context of you have to use extensions, but then, or you're currently using them, but then always be in mind, this is an extra. Do you really need to?
Yeah, please question if you absolutely need to use it, because you're going to be stuck with it forever. And writing all these complicated logic, like in today's date, if you really look at the big AWS theme, if you're on AWS already, you should be looking to have separate data stores for separate kind of workloads. So if you're doing OLTP, use something like DynamoDB as your OLTP store. If you're doing OLAP, use something like Redshift or even just S3. That's just fine. S3 and Athena will actually give you everything that you need for OLAP, and then use QuickSight dashboards backed by Spice if you need to.
Sure. All right, let's give this 4.5 clouds, and we are going to hit our foot on the accelerator pedal and keep powering through these.
Yeah, Stephen is going to make sure that I don't keep talking. Great.
All right, here we go. And the next one is SageMaker Data Wrangler. There it is.
There it is. Under.
SageMaker Data Wrangler now provides built-in data preparation in notebooks. So this is one of those examples of filling the gaps, really addressing how people are actually using the products. A very common criticism of I guess the distinction between data scientist, data engineer. Data scientists, they can work in these notebooks, but then moving a data science project into production is what it typically falls over. So some of these SageMaker tools of basically expanding the capability of what can be done in a SageMaker notebook, and also, as we'll see later, making SageMaker notebooks easier to deploy. This is really blurring that line or making it more of a continuum between using a notebook in production and then putting it into production. So this particular article, it's moving that data preparation stage into the notebook. So you don't need to maybe have that happen prematurely. It's part of the exploratory process now.
Correct. Can you just scroll down just a tiny bit? I want to make sure. Again, this definitely simplifies. Closing anything that does to close the gaps simplifies things. And my only concern over here, can you go into that link that they provided?
Because, this one, next generation SageMaker notebooks.
That is the one. Great.
Oh, cool.
So if you go down, you will see that there are a lot of examples with screenshots and stuff that describe how you would actually go about using this. There are lots of examples to play around with, a bunch of Python code.
Look at that, dropping the null values, dropping the extreme values.
So very, very nicely done. This would make it really simple to play around with this, with these new features. And so, yeah, I'm going to give this a 5. I'm a big fan of, as you can guess already, of all of this detail. So I'm going to give this a huge 5.
5 clouds, and then a simplifies. Yep, very, very nice work. That is really going to be empowering to data teams, where you can be closer to the data preparation process. Okay, next one is EC2 Spot Ready. This one's really interesting. EC2 Spot Ready software. This is here we go. Software EC2 Spot Ready software are vetted by AWS partner solution architects that customers can deploy on Spot with confidence. So we're fans of Spot. It's a great way to economize. It can be a tenth the price. There we go, up to 90% discount. But can all applications take it? I mean, can you just shut down you have to remember with Spot, it can vanish at any time.
Correct. And so your applications really need to be ready to leverage Spot. And this is kind of like a certification program, I'm guessing. Though my only criticism of this particular announcement, and particularly this blog post, is that there aren't it doesn't very clearly say that is this like a marketplace. You have to dive into a lot more detail to go and figure all of that stuff out. But is there a marketplace? Like AWS Marketplace is really awesome. You can go pick a solution. When you pick a solution, is it going to say this is Spot Ready in the marketplace place? So I think just in terms of the announcement, it could have been way better. But I love the idea of using, having this certification for partner products.
And I would love some example that quantified something like, okay, if you're running a simulation, okay, this uploads its result every minute or every 10 seconds or whatever it is. So that way you can kind of quantify it versus not.
Correct.
So, all right. So I think, what do we say? Maybe 3.5?
I'll give it a 3.5.
All right.
I'd also just, if somebody's listening to this on the AWS side, it would be great to know how things change on the partner side of things. Like what are the minimums that they would need to think about to get certified, for this. So having a framework, having an outline would be incredibly valuable.
All right. So simplifies, but 3.5.
Yeah.
I can't see how it adds any complexity. Okay. Next one we are doing is Graviton Delivery Partners. Okay, this is AWS Graviton Delivery Partners. So this is, speaking of partners, Graviton Delivery Partners offer world-class services to implement workloads on AWS Graviton-based instances. I think this is more reflective of how much investment is happening in Graviton.
Correct. So I'll say two things. One is this seems to follow the theme of the last announcement of certifying partners that have certain very specific capabilities with their products. And this is a technology capability. You've got Spot as one dimension to make sure everything is stateless. Here's the second one, which is it is geared for and optimized for Graviton to leverage all the price performance benefits you get out of this. So having this kind of certification is pretty awesome.
What is the learn more page? Okay, okay, this is neat. So you can have examples of things that work on the Graviton, and hopefully they will. I would like to know more of what exactly this means, and certainly.
But I think here they're only showing partners. Can you just go down a bit?
Sure.
Let me. Actually, they do have. These are all products, not just the partner company, right? Yeah. So makes sense.
Data platform.
I wonder if you can filter down to ones that are Graviton only. That'd be neat.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks on the surface, again, we haven't had time for a deep dive into anything, but on the surface, it looks like a really, really good idea. And we're big fans of Graviton. So things that can make it easier and more reassuring. I mean, switching architecture always seems like a very big decision. So being able to provide additional assurances, guarantees, that seems like a good idea. All right. Let's.
Moving on to the next one.
Yeah. I'm going to give that a simplifies. I think that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Next one is SageMaker Studio. Studio now supports real-time collaboration. I think this is a great example of them really understanding the users of their product.
Correct.
One of my friends is a professor. He says that all of the younger students who are brought up on iPads as their primary compute device. They expect if you open the same file in multiple places, why can't you edit at the same time?
Correct.
If
I think the expectation of the technology has changed dramatically in just the last 10 years. And now the fact that you have one open, document means that it's just implicit that everyone should be able to edit it at the same time. That collaborative nature, especially with everything that's happened with the pandemic over the last 2 or 3 years, that's an expectation. So that's coming to SageMaker Studio, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really, really neat idea. It's anything that makes teamwork, collaboration easier. That's exciting.
Exactly.
They have a link to a more detailed blog post. This is by Ansha Barth, and it's pretty neat. Wow, SageMaker Studio. It's only since 2019.
Yeah,
that's brand new.
But SageMaker Studio came in 2019. It was announced at reInvent, in fact.
Neat. Okay,
great.
And then
and all the examples are in there. Yep, all of that stuff is here. So again, I'd give this a 5-star. I'm going to be very generous with anyone who illustrates with examples on the blog post. Again, we are going to be deep diving into a bunch of these as we get back to a more normal routine and schedule.
And then clearly it simplifies, because if you're not doing this, then you are coordinating via Git merges and pull requests and rebases. And that's
for notebooks.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Can you imagine for all the data and notebooks and stuff like that?
I still have what do they call commit hooks on my IPython notebook, so that you don't commit the results, and then it's a bit of setup. So fantastic.
Okay.
Next one is another SageMaker Jumpstart. So here we go. We'll jump right in. Okay, SageMaker Jumpstart enables you to more easily share ML artifacts within your organization. So this is sharing notebooks, sharing models. Again, this is that gap filling. Traditional worry about data science projects is that when they have to be deployed or even just moved, that's a great time for the project to fail. So empowering, being able to move these around and thinking about what are the true building blocks of data science. So these ML artifacts, that's pretty neat that they can be moved around.
Correct. And back to the theme of governance and making sure that you don't build out your own shadow IT, making it really easy to leverage all the assets that you have in a simple, common, standard, and secure way is, I think, where I think AWS has done a pretty neat job this year.
Oh, I remember one of my first data science projects. I was a data scientist, didn't know much about running code in production, and I had to get a model implemented by someone who knew nothing about data science, and it was really hard. So being able to just share models. Let's see, many enterprises started today. SageMaker Jumpstart helps you more easily share ML artifacts like notebooks and models within your enterprise. That's pretty. It supports in and out of SageMaker.
I had one other a very specific data point. So I just got an email yesterday from my team. So every week I actually make our team that works with a lot of ML related stuff. I make them clean up at the end of every week. All the stuff that generally proliferates because all of these things weren't announced till last week. And every week we actually end up cleaning up and saving something like $8,000 to $10,000 worth of resources. And if you analyze that, that's a lot of money.
Yes,
that is kind of left, on the table if you did not have that discipline to keep cleaning things up. So we try to automate as much as possible, but it just goes to show how much, when you don't have these governance patterns in place, how much you actually end up wasting and leaving on the table. So I love the fact that it simplifies that whole process, makes it easier for organizations to leverage these services without having to worry about, how am I going to keep everything hygienic and clean?
All right, so it gives it as you said, it simplifies.
Yep.
I think we're going to give this
I would give this a 4-star at this point.
4-star. All right, There we go. Nice work, SageMaker team. You've done a lot. There's been a lot of work happening, so that's fantastic.
Agreed.
All right, we are jumping into our last one of the day, which is Guard Duty RDS protection.
Okay, So in this one, AWS is basically trying to use ML to solve a lot of the problems that you have with managing all of these resources. So if, for example, GuardDuty has been really amazing for us as we've been using it, because it basically identifies a whole lot of situations from all the logs and analyzing all of that stuff, which people had to do manually. Like trying to figure out what is the right monitor to have is an incredibly challenging problem, especially for a service that is A, in the cloud, B, managed by someone else, and C, where you don't understand all vectors of attacks when it comes to security. So the fact that GuardDuty is there, you can literally just with a click of a button turn it on, and it does all of that stuff for you, gets you all the alerts, it monitors all the logs, knows what to look for in all the data. I think that is incredibly valuable. And now that you've got that for RDS, so we've traditionally been using it for your accounts, you've been using it for your web servers, for your app servers, for your API gateways, things like that. Now you can use it for RDS and see whether there are attacks where there are, rogue queries that are running and literally slowing down your database and not allowing others to connect and so on. Or if your connections just, go out of control, GuardDuty can do all of that for you and will notify you when something is wrong. So incredibly valuable for anyone who's running any, critical workloads. And there is a threat of things going wrong.
This is pretty neat. It's direct, without requiring you to modify your databases, and doesn't
Correct.
affect performance. And how do you deploy it? A single click in the GuardDuty console.
Correct.
That's pretty good. And then preview period. So it's in 5 regions.
Yep.
No additional costs. So why? Then if you're not using GuardDuty, so this is no additional cost on top of GuardDuty, not on top of
Correct. No additional
RDS.
costs over GuardDuty at this point. Yes.
All right. Well, I think this is definitely a simplifies, and keeping security
100%.
as top of mind. Security is extremely important, but then being able to manage that with, you still have to be able to access your data,
Correct.
but then keep the right people out of it. Let's.
Okay.
We're
going to give this
simplifies
and 4.
4.
I'll go with 4. Actually, let's give it a 5 because there's just one click in the GuardDuty console, and it's very clear that that's what you have to do. So yeah, it doesn't get easier than this, really.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. It has been really fun sharing this reInvent with you, and we will be back in a couple of hours at 5:30 p.m.
5:30 p.m. That's
for a final wrap-up session, and we're looking forward to just taking a moment to breathe and telling you just our final thoughts about reInvent, and then getting back into a December is going to be my non-reInvent queue. So dealing with that.
Thank you all for joining us over here. And again, we are going to be here in Vegas all day. So if you want to catch up, today's the last day that we are here. We would love to meet you. We would love for you to come over at either the CloudFix booth on the show floor or any of the events that we have in different places going on. Look forward to seeing you all, and thank you once again. We will see you this evening.
All right. Have a good day. Have a good afternoon.
Have a great day.
You are. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Is your AWS public cloud bill growing? While most solutions focus on visibility, CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by finding and implementing AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe. There's zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. We've helped organizations save millions of dollars across tens of thousands of AWS instances. Interested in seeing how much money you can save? Visit cloudfix.com to schedule a free assessment and see your yearly savings.